Hello, I'm Jeff McNeil, and this is my review of God Eater 2 Rage Burst. As the newest member of the elite anti-origami task force, Blood, it's your duty as a God Eater to destroy the origami threatening the remaining human population and seek an end to the origami threat once and for all. Yet even when humanity is holding on by a thread, those seeking their own ends continue to plot and destroy everything in their way. The overall story isn't anything special. The game is very blatant with its reveals, and the elements it doesn't spoil are easy enough to figure out. It's also incredibly drawn out, with an average run of the story taking 50 plus hours. I did some minor grinding just to upgrade my weapons once, and my game ended up being 71 hours to completion. A great deal of time was spent doing random missions with no actual story relevance, or you'll be drop-fed 10 seconds of plot every mission for a few hours, when a single cutscene or discussion would have sufficed. This drawn-out story gets even worse when combined with the small pool of origami you actually end up encountering. Origami are essentially demons, they're monsters, they're enemies, they're the things you hunt. You'll end up facing the same few origami dozens and dozens of times, and it can make getting through the story a complete slog. I will give the game credit for its characters. The various God Eaters and support members you encounter are all wildly different in terms of personality, and the game spends a great deal of time with each of them. There are even optional character episodes where you can spend time with other God Eaters completing missions together, and it ends with them and possibly your character receiving some really nice bonus abilities. From experimenting with food to discovering the greatness that is the absolute territory, each character episode is packed full of charm and humor and are the best parts of the game's story. Graphically, the game is a mixed bag. It runs at a solid frame rate, and I never ran into any real visual bugs or glitches. The origami can be some of the most visually interesting monsters I've seen in a long time. From gigantic donkey tanks to amalgamates that bend the mind, there are some really cool designs. Unfortunately, for every good design is one that's just uninspired, like a fish with a cannon on its head, or a tiger with a cannon on its head, or Blanca with a cannon on his head, or a crocodile with a turbine on its head, or a scorpion. Yep, just a scorpion. And the palette swaps are terrible. They give them different names and sometimes a little visual change, but they're all ultimately the same, and this happens very early on. You're going to spend tens of hours fighting the same 4 or 5 origami with a different coat of paint and a different element. Sound shares the same problem as the visual design, with far too much repetition. It's a shame too, as what's here is quite well done. Music is exciting, threatening, or uplifting depending on the situation or hunt. Like the music here in the main lobby, it's the way it is right now because I completed the game. As you progress through the story, it changes depending on if things are really tragic, if there's good things happening, bad things happening, and the mission levels all have really good music. Voices are all distinct and the script is generally well done. The banter between characters on hunts can be a little grating, especially your support, who constantly chips in every time something happens, which is every 10 seconds or so, but overall I like the voice cast. Sound effects are well done as well. The slicing of a blade through a soft part of an origami, the blast of a shotgun smashing an armored body part to pieces, the grinding of metal on metal gives every blow and impact real weight. It's a shame that the hunts are so loud that it drowns out everything. With characters talking, blades and guns going off constantly, origami roaring, and explosions everywhere, it turns into an auditory mess that is actually painful to listen to. The gameplay took one look at Monster Hunter and said, let's anime that up. Player's main weapon is the God Arc, and I'm just going to start a mission here real quick. One of the coolest weapons I've seen in a game. It's made of 3 main components, a close range weapon, in my case a scythe, a long range weapon, in my case shotgun, and a shield, which I'm using a tower shield. And players can choose any combination they want to. This allows not only great deals of freedom in how you choose to equip your God Eater, but also grants freedom in how you act during any point of a mission, since you can go from shooting your gun to using your weapon, raise your shield to block, back to the gun. You have a lot of freedom in how you fight. You have a basic combo attack by pressing square, a more powerful combo attack with triangle, and R1 is your everything else button. Tapping R1 switches you from gun mode to close range mode. Holding it and pressing either attack button performs special attacks and actions. And by holding it and pressing circle, you raise your shield. It's a little ungainly at first, but it doesn't take too long to get used to it. Later on, you gain blood arts, which allow you to modify a single attack of your choice with a wide variety of effects. These blood arts can completely change how you fight or deal with particularly difficult enemies. Right now, my blood art changes the 4th attack of my basic combo. You see that flash of red, and I perform my blood art. Sometimes they're visually almost the same, but they get different attributes like health drain or extra damage on certain body parts. Each of the game's missions takes place in a single arena, and your goal is to hunt a number of origami, so no load times, just one relatively small area. The game's actual layout is very simple, and as a bonus you can bring up to 3 fairly competent AR party members along, each with their own abilities and tactics. Battles consist of either taking out all origami or taking out a specified target while avoiding getting overwhelmed by the others. One thing I have to mention is how nonsensical the difficulty can become. Nearly every enemy in the game, I think except 2 or 3, have access to projectiles, and they aren't shy about sniping you. In fact, they're programmed to do so. If you're fighting one enemy, the others will stay back and snipe you repeatedly, or perform some type of charging attack that barrels through your team every half second and then moves out of range. It is quite literally impossible to dodge the attacks the game throws at you. The sheer annoyance of it, even an enemy without line of sight can hit you with projectiles, because basically everything has some type of explosion underneath you, something raining above you, or something that can curve around an object you're hiding behind. I'm fine with the game being tough. I'm fine with the game being tough, but when the only way to beat a level is to just tank the enemy with your face and constantly chug healing pills, I have to call it out. And that happens far more often than it should. Overall, God Eater 2 Rage Burst isn't a terrible Monster Hunter clone, but the lack of variety combined with the frustrating difficulty and drawn-out story makes it somewhat difficult to recommend. Once you get past the more frustrating missions, the game just coasts along, never doing anything special or memorable. This has been Jeff McNeil. Thank you for joining me, and I will see you next time.